The Dallas Mavericks, though, of course, making their first Western Conference Finals appearance since 2011, remain a hot topic of conversation in the NBA as they look to build upon what was a very successful season this past year. But knowing, though, that this team is going to be in a Western Conference race that's going to be much deeper going into 2022, given the fact that there's going to be a lot of teams that are going to be getting healthier going into next year. Despite all the success that the Mavericks had this year, I'm kind of getting the sense that I think we have to make sure that the expectations are where they need to be based on what this team achieved relative to their roster that they have now and what we think they can still achieve based on what they already have. And as I look at it, I'm like, this might be a play-in team versus what we had last year, which is a team that was, one of the four best teams record-wise in the Western Conference.
Absolutely. No, I'm with you there. It's something that I've looked at a lot, and I had a feeling, first of all, we're going to be a little bit of negative Nancy's here. I understand that. And look, we're not doing this
in context.
Yeah, we're not doing it just to do that, just to be negative. But I think that it's worth being honest about these things because right immediately after the season with the Mavs, there was a lot of people having the conversations that were like, oh man, this is now a team that can be in the Western Conference Finals all the time. And like, this is now where you are. And I mean, in fighting the urge to be a negative Nancy, I didn't want to be like, yeah, but you can't do it like, it's not just, hey, I made it here, so I anticipate being here next year, right? Like, that's not how sports work. It's one of the reasons why I don't like the idea of the defending champion. You are the champion, you're the reigning champion, you hold that title. However, this is an entirely new season with new challenges, new landscapes, like everything ends up being different. And with that being the case, the Western Conference, I mean, obviously you have teams that are like, you have similar teams, you have some holdovers, but you also have some things that shift and change. And within that, because the DeAndre Ayton actually ends up being matched on his qualifying offer for his restricted free agency, Phoenix is still good. Memphis, even though I know there's some people that doubt them, Memphis is a team of dogs, right? Like, let me let you in on the way that the Memphis Grizzlies has built their team. This is a team that they have gone and they have tried to maximize like the lower, lesser valued players. They go and get guys in the second round and undrafted free agency and they build them up. And so these guys playing well isn't a fluke. Like, these are just guys that were undervalued that they've built up. And now they have a team. And then they also have the high level players on top of that in your John Moran and your Jaren Jackson Jr.'s. And I guess you can maybe say like your Dylan Brooks's. You've got those high level players, but you've also got a good, robust group of like role players that are young and boisterous and like all of that. That's a team that I don't think is going
very
away.
Well coached as well.
Also, that's a great point. Taylor Jenkins is like consistently in there for Coach of the Year. The Warriors are who I think the Warriors are. The Denver Nuggets have always been a good team, and this is a team that is headlined by a two-time MVP, and their second and third best player didn't play hardly at all last season. That's a team that you anticipate coming back and being some level of good. The Los Angeles Clippers, their second best players, did not play last season. That's a team that you anticipate being like, these are teams that are now going to step into this place and make it difficult on you. And so with that being the case, the Mavericks did make themselves better by going and getting a guy who profiles to be a really good player in Christian Wood. Should everything filter out the way that you want it to, particularly being defense. You added JaVale McGee to kind of help you with that defensive prowess down low. But you did lose something in not having that secondary ball handler, something that we all were hoping to have. You don't necessarily have the depth at the wings that you were hoping to add through this season. So there's still some deficiencies, and I'm not saying that they're going to take a massive step back. You still have Luka Doncic, one of the better players in this league. However, I don't know that you can pencil them in to be a top 4 team. I don't know that you can pencil them in to be a Western Conference Finals team.
Or a top 6 team in general.
And that's the place where it gets a little interesting because BetAG Online, actually, they've started sending out the over-unders for the season.
Okay.
And I guess we could do this as a little bit of a guessing game, all right? Who do you think in the West is slated to have the most wins this upcoming season?
I'm going to go with the Clippers.
Clippers are tied with another team.
Phoenix.
There you go. 52.5 wins. All right. So that's 1-2. What about 3? Who would you guess?
I'll go with Golden State.
That's it.
Okay.
51.5.
Okay.
4. Oh, so that's 3 spots. And I'm not saying that this is the end all be all because Vegas doesn't know everything. There's injuries. There's all sorts of things that happens during the season. But let's just get an idea of the landscape. Who do you think might be 4th?
I'll go with Memphis.
Boom. 51. That's 4 spots. 5th.
Denver.
Man, you getting all these 49.5.
And I'm not looking at this list.
That's 5 spots already.
Yeah.
We've already gotten 5 spots in the West, and you have not talked about the win totals of your Dallas Mavericks. And of course, again, projected from Vegas. These are over-under lines. This isn't the end-all be-all by anything, just to get an idea of what this team might be, right? Okay, and then after that, who do you think is at 6?
I'll go with the Timberwolves.
So this is where the Timberwolves, not the Atlanta Hawks because they are not in the West. The Timberwolves and the Dallas Mavericks are tied at 47.5. So you are tied for 6, which means you could be 6th or you could be 7th if this is ultimately what happens. And so you're being slotted at the beginning of the season right at that borderline
as a possible playing team. Because here's how the top 6 went down in the West this past year. Yeah, Phoenix, Memphis, Golden State, Dallas, Utah, Denver were your top 6. You can remove Utah from the equation, obviously.
Oh, yeah, they're done.
They're done. So now you've got Phoenix, Memphis, Golden State, Dallas, Denver as those 5. And now the playing teams that you had were the Timberwolves, the Pelicans, the Clippers, and the Spurs. You can forget about the Spurs. They're done. So now you've got teams like the Timberwolves, the Pelicans, and the Clippers that are there. I'm putting the Clippers into the top 6 going into next year.
I like the Clippers to be in the top 4, honestly.
Exactly. So
personally.
So for the conversation, we've got Phoenix, Memphis, Golden State, Denver, and the Clippers. So I've just named 5 teams already. And I haven't even gotten to the Mavericks.
And you definitely like those teams more than the Mavericks?
I definitely like those teams more than the Mavericks. I think they're deeper than the Mavericks, especially the Clippers. Clippers going to be monstrous.
And this is before we talk about some of the teams that are interesting. Like I was really, my eyes were open in this offseason, or not offseason, but in the past postseason, by the New Orleans Pelicans, what they were able to do. Brandon Ingram has really stepped into his own as like being a high-level ball player in this league.
And now you got a healthy Zion coming back.
Yeah. And look, there's a lot of questions as to whether these teams will be able to make this work. We were talking about being the Mavs, win total being tied with the Minnesota Timberwolves. 2 of their best players are bigs that might not be able to play together. We have no idea on that. So I'm not saying that they're absolutely good. They've got some figuring out to do. Absolutely. And you can maybe look at the Mavericks and say that this is more cohesive and then they have more of an idea of what their identity is because they play together. If you want to say that, absolutely. But
I do think in the regular season that thing in Minnesota will work. I think they'll have to do a lot of figuring things out when it comes to...
Yeah, but that figuring things out can't cost you games. And what we're talking right here is position. I'm just willing... I think within this conversation, we just got to have the understanding that it'll help your expectations more to not immediately slot them as a Western Conference final type team. To maybe have the understanding that this is like from the, what was this? The 8-3-2. Mavs are a playoff team, not a play-in team, not a conference finals team. And I can understand that standpoint, and I kind of feel like that as well. But like having that more realistic expectation, understanding that, yes, you have a great player in Luka Doncic, and yes, if everything flows together, it works well. But if you have too high of expectations, you might hurt yourself with a team that still has some deficiencies and with a team that still got some figuring out to do.
Because right now, based on the top 6 I would have in my top 6 the Suns, the Grizzlies, the Warriors, the Nuggets, the Timberwolves, and the Clippers.
And there's
not necessarily in that order. Those would be my top 6 teams, with the Mavericks coming in as the 7th best team in the West.
And there's questions to be had. Like the Suns from the 9-7-2, the Suns are not going to be better than Mavericks. I can understand why you say that because...
Based on what just happened?
Well, there's that, right? Like, I guess you can't deny that happened right there. However, also, Chris Paul is how many years old?
I think he'll be 38 by the time the season starts.
Are we really betting on a 38-year-old to hold up and continue to be like the hub of a team? Right? I can absolutely understand you looking at that and going, no, that falls apart. And sure, get that. But here's the thing, right? From the 9-7-2, you guys truly think that as great as Luka is, he can't carry a team through the season to a home court advantage. I think that he's absolutely great enough to carry this team to a certain place, but you have to understand, this is a league, especially in the West, that's stacked up with a lot of talent, and it almost feels like you're going backwards in the way of Luka usage. right? This is something we've talked about since Luka touchdown in Dallas, was just the amount of time that he has the ball in his hands and the amount of work that he has to do to create. And we're talking about, Spencer Dinwiddie being good with having Luka getting him opportunities, and Dorian Finney-Smith and Reggie Bullock Luka getting them opportunities. And now Christian Wood, oh man, he's going to be great because Luka gets some opportunities. Luka is still the person that you're asking to do all of these things. And with that being the case, that will wear down on a player after a while. And you might have, heck, I don't even want to like say this out loud because I don't want to wish things on. Luka's been relatively healthy.
Sure.
The possibility that a player like that who has that level of load could ultimately face an injury at some time, like without even even that being in the possibility of harming your, because you lose Luka for 2 weeks, 3 weeks. What happens to the Mavericks as a team, particularly without having that solid secondary ball handler? So look,
and it's funny. There was a team I didn't even mention yet that could find themselves getting back to the top 6 of the West too if they find a way to get everyone on the same page. That's the Lakers. As much as we have maligned them when it comes to,
I'm gonna keep maligning them. I'm good on maligning the Lakers right now.
The whole Russell Westbrook experience. When LeBron James and Anthony Davis are healthy, and this team, I think, will be better. I think they'll be much better defensively under Darvin Ham this upcoming year. This is another team that could find, even if they're not in the top 6, this is still a play-in team that I think will find themselves in the top 7 or 8 of the West. And for the texter, the 214 talking about, the Nuggets won't be better than the Dallas Mavericks. Here's the thing about Denver. Denver was only 4 games worse than the Mavericks without Michael Porter Jr. and Jamal Murray.
Like they actually low-key found a good amount of depth.
Yes. The Nuggets are a terrific basketball team that when now they're going to be fully healthy, they'll have a 2-time defending MVP leading them, because without Jokic, that team's a lottery team. But now you've got those 2 guys coming back. Now, obviously, it depends on the health, especially of Michael Porter Jr.
Certainly.
But, yeah, Denver, that's a very, very good basketball team when they're healthy. And the fact that they went 4 games behind without, those 2 guys, that just shows you how good Jokic is.
I'm not sure that I'm willing to go to the Mavericks are a play-in team, because ultimately, even if we just want to fall back on one thing, Luka Doncic is one of the top 5 players in this league.
Yeah, but still, I think part of the conversation as we have this going forward is that's a very real possibility given how much these teams in the West are going to improve and the health of these teams getting better as well. But hey, like you said, you got a top 5 player in the league. That should obviously help when it comes to their chances finishing.
All right, so we were the negative Nancys. This is the thing that's beautiful, right? I don't think there's any possibility that you talk about this team outside of that type of window.
Of course not, no.
And still, I think that's the low end, is like, oh, this Mavs team has to be in the play-in. I think that, if you are at expectation, that 47.5, you're probably about 6. And if you exceed expectation, if things go well, if JaVale McGee's able to give you even more than what you expect, if Christian Wood ends up being like a legitimately number 2 type player for a contending team, you push further than that. I just know that those things don't always work out the way that you want to. So keeping a little bit of level-headedness might help you with your expectation.